Hello, welcome to Yoga with Rach. I'm Rach, thank you for joining me for today's practice. So we're having a look at how we can activate the muscles in the body that we need to use rather than working on the ones that automatically activate. So if you know that you have tension or tightness in your neck or your shoulders, it could be that these areas of the body are compensating for your biceps, your triceps, your forearms. If we know that we should be using our core but we feel that our back gets compromised, or we're using the quads, or if our hamstrings actually feel overly tight, sometimes we don't actually need to stretch the hamstrings more, it's just they're holding on going, why are you trying to pull me past where I should be moving to? We actually need to go a little bit more into the glutes. So in this practice, we're going to have a go with working these areas of the body instead of the areas that automatically activate. You might need a block for this practice, or if you don't have a block, a pillow or a cushion, or even rolling up the back of your mat might work, or even a folded up blanket for one of the poses that we might be having a look at. It will depend on the variation that you can practice. So see how you get on. Have one close by in case you need it, and if you don't, then awesome. So finding a comfortable seat, and if you have got that block to hand, we can place the block underneath the tailbone just to find that little bit more space into the back. Find what feels comfortable for you in the legs. Hands can rest into the lap or into the knees, or the shoulders away from the ears. If that feels nice, give them a few little shrugs. And as we find a little bit of stillness, just bring your awareness to your breath. So as you start your practice, take these few moments now to check in and notice what areas of the body do you overuse? What areas of the body feel over tight? And ask yourself, why do they feel overused, or why do they feel tight? So are we locking into the neck and the shoulders? Do we do a lot of sitting, or do we overstretch in certain poses that we're actually causing more tension rather than finding that release? A few more moments seated, just bringing your awareness to areas of the body that might be feeling tight or overly tense. And from here, we're going to just gently blink the eyes open if they were closed. Wait a little bit of movement in, so we'll be shocking the shoulders again, wiggling the fingers. And if you're sat on the block, just place the block to one side, but keep it handy because we're going to move into our yogi squat arm malasana pose. So moving as though we're going to go into tabletop, but tucking under the toes, shift the weight back. So we're pushing the tailbone towards the heels to let the knees and the shins lift. And this might be where we need a block or a pillow or a cushion or a blanket, or if your heels are quite close to the mat, you might be able to roll the mat up a little bit just to create that or fill the gap in between the feet and the floor. So just noticing that difference. So you might find that it makes a big difference as you're then starting to shift back, if you're then starting to push the heels in towards the mat or in towards the block, depending on where you're landing. So you might find that you can place the heels onto the mat, awesome. But if you can't, still awesome, but we can compensate with using the props, so we can start to shift the weight back. So we're finding that release into the lower back, but for some of us this pose is not an uber comfortable pose, so we can always release it when we need to, coming into a little forward fold, and then lowering back down into the pose. You might really be feeling this in your feet, the ankles, the heels, the shins, the calf muscles, the knees, the thighs, front and back, into the hips. So you might not be aware of there being a stretch here, or if you're sat here and you're quite comfortable and you might not feel a stretch, we don't always have to go for the stretch. So we're still stretching, releasing the body, but we don't always have to feel that stretch going on. So we can stay here for a few breaths. Do come out of the pose whenever you're ready. And you might even pause the video here for a little bit longer if you want to stay in Malasana for that little bit longer if it feels completely comfortable for you. So just bring your awareness to where you feel that tension. We want to find some form of comfort within the discomfort. So it's checking in and honouring, do I have to come out of the pose because it's hurting, or do I just want to come out of the pose because I don't like it, because it just feels uncomfortable? So try to find those two different points. Honour which one you're feeling. Focusing on the breath. When you're ready, if you haven't come out of the pose already, you can place the block to one side if we're using the block, coming back down into tabletop. We want to make sure that we're as close to the top of the mat as possible. So we've got the hands to the top of the mat, there's room behind us. We're going to move into a calf stretch. So we're going to just tuck under the toes of one leg or one foot, it doesn't matter which side you start with. So you're letting the knee lift, we're pushing through the toes of one of the foot as you push the heel towards the back of the mat. So we're inviting that stretch into the calf muscle, focusing on the breath. If you are prone to cramps, don't push through or work through it. Just be aware that how far can you go before the cramp will set in. So just finding that edge. There's no point in working through a cramp, it will just feel 10 times worse. When you're ready, changing sides, so you can bring the knee down, lifting the other knee up, tucking under the toes, pushing through the ball of the foot, pushing the heel away, so we're starting to find a bit more of an active stretch. Focusing on the breath. And we'll do that once more each side. Changing sides. And slowly releasing. So staying in your tabletop, inhaling, lifting the chin, lifting the tailbone. Exhale, rounding through the spine, tucking the chin, the tailbone under, moving through your cat-cow. Stay with your breath, inhale, lift the chin, lift the tailbone. Exhale, rounding through the spine, tuck the chin, the tailbone under. So checking in, you're more than welcome to pause in child's pose whenever you need to. We might stay with our cat-cows a little bit longer, but when you're ready, we're going to start to check in with our downward facing dog. So from our tabletop, spreading the fingertips nice and wide, tucking under the toes, draw the shoulders back, keep the knees bent, but as you lift the knees, push the tailbone high. Find that space in between the arms for your head. Focus on drawing the chest and the belly back towards the thighs. So again, releasing the hamstrings, rather than straining to lock the hamstrings and then starting to round and overwork the shoulders. Bend into the knees, so we find this release into the back and into the hamstrings. We might walk on the spot, slowly bending one knee and straighten, bending the other knee and straighten. Staying on downward dog for as long as it feels comfortable, but when you're ready, come back down into tabletop for our cat curls. Inhale, lifting the chin and the tailbone. Exhale, rounding through the spine, tucking the chin and tailbone under. Or maybe you're having a little pause in child's pose, knees hip width or wider. Pull the tailbone to the heels, forehead resting on the mat. Maybe arms stay extended in front of you, or we can bring the hands down by the feet. So from here, we're going to have a little check-in coming into plank pose first and seeing if that makes a difference on where our feet land in our downward facing dog. So just notice when we lift from our tabletop into downward dog, and then notice that we have to extend our legs back. So I can see for me that my feet are going to be in a slightly different spot for our plank. So when you lift up into your plank, essentially feel that you're in that calf stretch again. See if you can push the heels back to try and activate the legs. Notice the difference between this, pulling the whole body back, or just stretching into the heels. Then have a go with drawing the shoulders back, lift the tailbone high. And I know for me that my preferred spot for our downward dog is to actually step the feet a little bit further forward to where they were in my plank pose, so I can really get that nice bend in the knees. So I know that when I move into plank, I'm going to step the feet back again. So have a go, move between the two, downward dog and plank, and move the feet if you need to. But the key thing here is that we want to use the legs more than use the arms. So if you're already overworking the neck and the shoulders, how many of you are walking around in your daily life on your hands? I'm guessing most. There will always be someone that likes to walk around in their handstand practice, but traditionally we're not animals that walk around on our hands. So when we do move through our plank and downward dog, how often do you feel that you do this? So we want to make sure that the hands stay in place. The hands are in place in nice perfect alignment with the shoulders from our tabletop. So we move the feet, lifting the legs for our plank. As we lift into downward dog, again, if we need to adjust our stance, move the feet. So you're keeping the arms nice and strong rather than having to try and use them for mobility. And again, pause when you need to. Either coming down into cat curls or have a little pause in child's pose. So from here, if we know that our hamstrings are tight, we're going to have a little go with seeing if we can lift our foot, but it's a reaction of lifting the leg up into the hip whilst we're in our downward dog. So we're starting to activate the glutes. So you might need to straighten the legs a little bit more, but we're going to see if we can activate the glute to lift the foot. So the foot hovers off of the mat and then drop it back down. So you activate the glute and lift to hover the foot and lower back down. So this is very different to this. So you're not locking into or bending into the knee. We're sort of drawing up into the hip to lower back down, drawing up to lower back down, drawing up. So there's very little movement going on elsewhere in the body, purely in that hip joint. So again, do a couple of these, side to side, and then when you're ready, come on back down. We might have a go with our wrist stretches, so we can turn the fingertips to face the sides of the mat, or turning the hands all the way around. If you're stretching the inner wrists or stretching the outer wrists, turn one hand around, palm faces up, and changing sides or working both at the same time. Slowly coming back. So we're going to move into our forearm plank, forearm downward dog. So we're starting to focus on trying to use forearms, biceps, triceps, rather than the neck and the shoulders. So have a go. So you do not have to do all of these in in your yoga practice, but one little thing that you can do every single day if you try and build up your strength in your forearms, so we're starting to bring the awareness into the arms to work rather than the neck and the shoulders, is to find a comfortable seat. So you might be sitting on your yoga mat, you might be sitting in bed, you might be sitting in your car if your car's parked, or if you're in traffic you're not moving. So we can do this movement as we're holding onto the steering wheel, so be safe. You might be sitting on the sofa, you might be sitting at your desk, you might be standing in line at the checkout, you might be standing waiting for the kettle to boil. So basically there's any way that you can do this as long as you're safe, you're not going to cause a hazard to yourself. So don't do this whilst you're actually moving your car. But whilst you're sitting, we can open the hands up nice and wide, so spread the fingertips nice and wide like we do when the hands are on the mat. And then make a fist, and then open the hands again. So make a fist, open the hands again. So I call this popcorn hands. Some people already associate this with doing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, or we've had jazz hands. But to do this movement, to make the fingers clench and release, you're not using any muscles in your fingers because you don't have any muscles in the fingers, they're all ligaments. But we're using muscles in the forearms. And if you look at your forearms, you can see that movement, and that's what we're creating. We can keep the movement nice and slow, or we can do this movement 10 times fast. But if you know that you use your neck and your shoulders rather than the muscles in your arms, then try doing this first. You're starting to bring that awareness down into the arms. Check you're not clenching the arms or shoulders. So if you've used stress balls before, you'll know that that's a similar sort of movement that we're doing, because it's bringing that movement, that awareness into using your forearm muscles. So from here, we're going to move into our tabletop. We might need to shimmy back a bit because we want to place the hands to the top of the mat, but we're going to lower both arms at the same time, bringing the forearms and the elbows down onto the mat. We want to try and keep the arms parallel, so they're in line with the edges of the mat. We're still pushing through the fingertips, the back of the knuckles, the palms of the hands, like we do in our tabletop, our plank, our downward dog. But now we're adding on that extra support of the forearms and the elbows. We're going to step the feet back to lift the knees, finding your forearm plank, pushing the hips back. So check that you're not pulling up, so it's not a downward dog. We're lifting the chin, looking forward, we're pushing the heels back, focusing on the breath. So this pose will start to then activate into the top of the arms, the biceps, triceps. If you're feeling this in your neck and your shoulders, just be aware that that's happening. Come out of the pose, have a few little stretches of the neck and releasing the shoulders. Just think, this is where I'm activating. I'm trying to engage the triceps. So it's trying to pull the triceps in. So you might need to hold the arms up and try and engage. It's such a tiny area of the body to work with. So is the neck and the shoulders, but they just automatically work. So this one might take a bit of practice, or you might work with your popcorn hands. So you're starting to bring that awareness into the arms, which will then help to draw that down into the triceps. So stay in your forearm plank for as long as feels comfortable. And from here, we can start to pull the shoulders back, starting to push the tailbone high. We might have to go walking the feet in a bit more. So make sure you're drawing back the same way we do for our normal downward dog, but now we're in our forearm downward dog or dolphin pose. Again, make sure you're not holding the breath. You can walk the feet back. And walking in, have a pause when you need to. Come down into your cat curls, your wrist stretches, calf stretches, child's pose. And then once we're here, we've got a few different variations. So you may stay with these, moving from your tabletop, bringing the forearms down, lifting into forearm plank, moving into forearm downward dog, dolphin pose, and back into forearm plank. Try to keep this muscle memory though. So as you're lowering the arms down, try to make sure that you're lowering both arms down at the same time to lift back up. So next variation or add-on is to roll your mat up a couple of times. So it's almost like we would be holding onto like a weighted bar. And then what we can do from here, so we're still keeping the palms facing down, but we can start to curl the palms into the mat. Bring both forearms, elbows down. So if you were holding onto your mat, so that you could actually lift that top part of your mat up and extend the legs back, push the heels back. So we're moving into our forearm plank. We can have a go with our forearm downward dog. You can also have a go if you've been working with your puppy pose and a asana pose, that we can stay with the arms in this placement, and you get more of an intense stretch into the triceps. So though you're resting, you could just add in a little bit of a dynamic stretch into that pose. So we can stay here. So this helps if you're used to this variation, clenching the fist, but you're placing the little finger side, the outer edge of your arm on the mat, you're going to be working the neck and the shoulders. But because you've still got the palms on the mat and you're still clenching, and just then remember when we were clenching, you're doing this movement, you're starting to then activate the forearm muscles, which helps to bring that down into the triceps a bit more. Or we might stay with the first variation and have a go with moving into our downward dog with the forearms on the mat, so our dolphin pose, and have a go with our down dog split. So we're lifting one leg up and lowering and changing sides. And then pause when you need to. So wrist stretches or cat curls or child's pose. Or we have one more variation. So if you've had a go with one of the videos, and I'll link it on at the end of this practice, working with our forearm downward dog, lifting and lowering between downward dog and forearm downward dog dolphin pose, or you're wanting to work towards your forearm stand, that forearm inversion, that Pinchamarasana pose, then you might have had to play with this variation, but we can build on this as well. So the first variation is staying in your tabletop and get the muscle memory for lowering both arms at the same time and lifting back up. So you've got the support of the legs on the mat, and we're starting to go into those triceps with lifting and lowering. In time, we may then be able to lift into our downward facing dog, lower both arms at the same time, but we won't be able to lift them back up again. So we lower the knees to lift the arms, lift the knees, lower the arms, lower the knees, lift the arms, and lift the knees. Or in time, we might be moving from downward dog, lowering the arms. Remember, both arms have to find the mat at the same time. We want to work the body nice and evenly, and then we might be able to lift both arms up at the same time. So we're working the triceps and the core for our lifts and lowers. Whenever you're ready, have a little pause in child's pose. So from here, we're going to come back to that downward dog, drawing up of the leg into the hip, and we're going to see if we can do a little walk. So it might be a couple of steps, and then you're walking the hands to the feet. You might find your way to the middle of the mat, and that's as far as you're going to be able to do that walk, and walk the hands to the feet. Or we might be able to get to the top of the mat, so don't force or push yourself to go too far. So we're engaging the leg, engaging the core, engaging the glute to lift the leg up, and as we place it down, we just gently step the leg slightly further forward. So you might take a couple of steps and then walk the hands to the feet. We might get to the middle of the mat and then walk the hands to the feet. We might keep going to the hands. Once you're in that forward fold, stay here for a breath or two and slowly come on up to standing. So if you had a block at the beginning of the practice, grab the block again. Don't worry if you don't have this one, it's not essential, it's just a nice fun add-on. So we're going to have a little go with our chair pose. So we're going to hold onto the block if you have one, placing the hands to the edge. We're not grabbing hold of it, so the hands are just nice and relaxed, put the fingertips away. And we're going to just take the feet, the knees hip width apart. Inhale, raise the arms up, and exhale, lower back down. Inhale, lifting up, and exhale, lowering back down. Inhale, lifting up, exhale, lower back down. Next, inhale, we lift up. We're going to bend the knees, sit the tailbone down, so we're moving into our chair pose. Check where you land. So sometimes we want to try and push the hips forward. This isn't what we want to do, because if you look down, your knees are covering your feet. So you want to pull your tailbone back, so as you look down, you can at least see your toes. Check that the knees aren't squeezing together. So you might find that you need an extra block to place the block in between the knees, so it stops your quads from activating. or we might be here with the arms lifted with or without the block. Whenever you're ready, straighten the legs, releasing the arms down. Inhale, raise the arm up. Exhale, bend the knees, sit down into your chair. If you wish to add on, have a go. We're trying to lift just the toes. We're pushing through the heels at the balls of the feet, focusing on the breath. Lower the toes, straighten the legs, lower the arms. Last one. Inhale, lift the arms. Exhale, lower down. If you're having a little go, see if you can lift the toes, even if it's just for a breath or two. Lower the toes. And we're going to see if we can slowly come all the way down to sitting on the tailbone to lift the feet up. If you've needed to drop the block and use your hands, please honour that in your body. And once you've landed, bring the feet back down. So sometimes we move into this and we start to round the back, so we want to find that alignment first in the back. So we're going to have a little check-in with our boat pose. So sitting up nice and tall, pull the belly towards the thighs, same as we do in our downward dog. We're bending the knees, we're pulling the belly towards the thighs, keeping the back nice and straight. To start with, take the hands behind the back of the thighs and knees, lean back with the shoulders. So as we lean back, we bring the legs up, so we're still keeping the knees towards the belly, the chest, without dumping into the lower back. So lifting up nice and tall, keep the knees, the feet hip width apart. We might be in our baby boat, so the feet hover off of the mat. And that might be enough. I know for me that my quads engage more than my core does in my boat pose. And for some of us, our lower back feels overcompensated. So checking in with where you feel this working. If it's here or shoulders, you might be doing this. So relax the arms. Stay with the variation that you can work your core instead. So we want to be drawing the belly in. We might be able to hold it there, or inhale, relax, exhale, engage. Inhale, relax, exhale, engage. So you might stay in your baby boat, feet hovering above the mat. We might have a go with our half boat. Can we lift the feet up so the shin makes a nice line with the knees? Still engaging the core, feet are not squeezing together, knees are not squeezing together. If you find that they want to do that, same in your chair pose, place a block in between the knees, focusing on the breath. From here we might release the arms. I know usually that's what activates my quads, so my perfect ideal boat pose is staying here. So find whether that's here or here or here for you. We might have the block in between the knees, or we might have a go with holding the block, so where we did it in our chair pose, and lifting the arms up. Still working the core, but work with the level that works for you and come out of the pose when you're ready. Feet on the mat, tucking the chin to the chest as you wrap the arms around the legs. So have a few more goes. Lift up nice and tall, support the legs at least to start with. Lean back, so we're drawing the knees and the thighs in towards the belly of the chest. And don't worry, if this is your boat pose, awesome. We can then focus on the core rather than working the areas that we don't need to overwork. So checking in, where are you moving to in the pose? Focusing on the breath and your core. Releasing when you're ready. If you wish to add on, we've got 3 different variations. So if it feels quite comfortable to find your half boat, we can slowly toe tap. So you can work with the breath. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. Working with your belly, engaging that core. And releasing whenever you need to. Or we might have a go with our Charlie Angel twist. We've had a go with this in the crunches. I'll also link that one up on the end. So if it's comfortable to find your half boat and keep the hands released away from the legs, interlacing the fingers apart from the index fingers. Inhale to the side, exhale to centre, engage the core. Inhale to the side, exhale centre, engage the core. Inhale to the side, exhale to the centre, engage the core. Inhale to the side. Do as many of these as feels okay, but when you're ready, come on out, have a pause. If you're really feeling that in the legs, give the legs a little bit of a wiggle. If you're feeling that in your back, have a little forward fold, or you might be moving into some cat curls and move back into your boat pose. Last variation, if it feels comfortable, is moving from your boat and into your row the boat. So you need to extend the legs, push back, but you've got to go as far as you can to lift back up. So we inhale and exhale. Inhale, exhale, engaging the core. Inhale, exhale. We might start to go a little bit further, as long as you can lift the body back up. When you're ready, coming back to sitting, and all the way down onto your back. So from here, just walk the feet wide, drop the knees together, just have a little release for your back if that's where you're feeling it from your boat pose. Just release the legs side to side. Make sure you're tucking the chin in slightly so you're not lying on the back of, or the top of the head, so you're more lying onto the back of the head and the neck. So checking in, listening to your body, if there are any other poses, if there's anything you feel that you need to do to stretch, release the body, feel free to have a little go with doing those now. So you might be coming back up for a forward fold, you might be staying in on your back for a twist, or we might be slowing the movement down, keeping the knees dropped in, feet wide, or extending the legs out, hands might rest onto the belly, or fall away from the hips. Closing the eyes as you move into Savasana. Just allowing your mind, your body to relax completely. Any thoughts wander in, just placing them to one side, they can always be dealt with later on. Slowly bringing your awareness back to your breath. Starting to invite movement back in as you wiggle the fingers, the toes. Gently stretching the arms, the legs. Bringing the knees into the belly. Wrapping the arms around the legs, a little hug and you're rocking from side to side. Rolling onto the side, staying there for a breath or two as you start to blink the eyes open, bringing your awareness back into the room. And coming on up to sitting. So thank you very much, and thank you for joining me for this practice. Do leave me a comment in the comment sections below, see how you feel during this practice. Are you feeling this in your forearms, your biceps, your triceps, the glutes, the core? Or are you still feeling this in your the quads? You're feeling this more in your back, you're feeling this in your neck and your shoulders. So bring your awareness to working with your popcorn hands, start to bring that awareness down into the arms rather than into the neck and the shoulders. And like I said, I'll pop a link for the forearm downward dog little video play, and then the core crunches. So you can start with working with your belly breath, so engaging the core, releasing, engaging the core, releasing, and that will help to start to bring your awareness into your core to help to support your back and take that away from your hamstrings and your quads. If you enjoyed this video, do give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please do subscribe. I'll pop a button up here, and I will see you next week. Thank you very much. Namaste.